So now that the dust has settled on the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct and a lot of the games that are going to be coming up for the system launching this year, June 5th, 2025, I wanted to go over my top 25 most anticipated Nintendo Switch 2 games. Now, when it comes to most anticipated, it doesn't just mean what I'm excited to play. It also means what I'm excited for when it comes to the platform, future support, and even just the technology in the game to see what the Nintendo Switch 2 is about. So I factored all of those things into making my decision for the top 25. So if there are some games that you're excited about, let me know in the comment section below what you're looking forward to playing when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2, and let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now we're going to start off at number 25, of course, and that is Drag Cross Drive or Drag X Drive, whatever the case is. This is the new wheelchair basketball type game that Nintendo has, and I'm not super excited for it, but I do think that it's very interesting when it comes to the technology because you use both of the Joy-Con 2s and the mouse mode or the sensors to kind of move it like a wheelchair and like you're playing like wheelchair basketball. So it seems like it's a game that can be insanely goofy and fun for parties at home. Like, I'm pretty sure there's going to be online play and stuff, but I do think that this might be a game that'll just look so ridiculous when you play against other people that'll be fun. Almost like a really weird Rocket League when it combines different aspects, and the control mechanism for this is just crazy. So I am somewhat interested to see how it actually works out as a full game later when it comes out this summer. Next up at number 24, Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I am not a Star Wars fan. I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I've seen a lot of the movies, and I did not check out Star Wars Outlaws on the Xbox and PlayStation or PC. And this one I'm only interested in because of what Digital Foundry had to say recently about the game when it comes to the technology of it. The Snowdrop engine, all of the graphical effects, the different stuff with this. This is supposedly an impossible port according to them overall. So I want to see how the Nintendo Switch 2 handles a game like this. I think that based on how this game is handled, how it runs, how it looks, that can tell us a lot of insight on the future of the Nintendo Switch 2 if a quality port is done. So I'm definitely excited to see exactly what's happening here. And apparently the game got a big overhaul with some of its stealth sections and patches and updates. So it's a bit better now than what it was before, and maybe more optimizations and other things are added in to the Nintendo Switch 2 release in order to make it an even more appealing game for gamers out there. So I'm definitely interested to see how Star Wars Outlaws works out on the Nintendo Switch 2. But now we're moving on to number 23, and that is Borderlands 4. Once again, just like Star Wars Outlaws, very interested to see how a game like Borderlands runs on the Nintendo Switch 2. This is the first time that I can recall in the history of the Borderlands franchise, and I was an old school fan. I bought the original game on the PS3 day one. I bought the original game, or more like the sequel, sorry about that, on the Xbox 360, and then I kind of fell off around Borderlands 3. I bought the game on Xbox One and just kind of fell off around there, but I do feel that this is a game, when it comes down to it, the first time ever that it's going to launch apparently day and day or right there in the same year. Borderlands has always been a franchise that comes later to Nintendo, like with the Nintendo Switch. Never got it at launch when it comes to any of the games. Obviously, some of the games were well before the Nintendo Switch even came out, but the Wii U never got anything. So Borderlands has been more of a recent franchise for Nintendo. So I want to see how this game runs. I want to see how it looks. And most importantly, when it comes to gameplay, because I did beat the original and I loved Borderlands 2, when it comes to the gameplay, how do they manage the guns? How do they manage that and it not being annoying with me constantly having to switch guns and trying to look and then not having enough for guns? I want to see how they do inventory management. If that's good and the story's good as well and it runs decent enough on the Nintendo Switch 2, it's something that I'm definitely going to have to check out later. So it comes in at number 23 on the list. All right, next up at number 22, Elden Ring. This is I wouldn't say demanding, but the way that it runs on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro and PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series has been debate amongst fans in terms of the engine and how it is. So I think that this version of the game is going to be incredibly interesting to see exactly how it's going. And the game is complete. It comes with the original Elden Ring, plus it comes with the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Now, I'm not a big Elden Ring or Souls type of person anymore. I used to be. I tried out Elden Ring on the PlayStation 5 running backwards compatibility, or PS4 running backwards compatibility with PS5, because it actually runs a little bit better there. And I also have the native PS5 version of the game. And I put about 20 plus hours into it or so and just decided I'm good on it. But I do want to see how it works out technology wise, and having a portable version of the game might be a little bit more entertaining for me, at least if I can play it during, whatever, I'm doing something else. So I do want to see more just on the technological side, how it runs, how it looks, and how everything's going with the game. That's also going to be very interesting overall. So Elden Ring coming in at number 22. All right, next up coming in at number 21 is Hogwarts Legacy. This is a game that I had interest in on the PlayStation and Xbox, but I've never been a big Harry Potter fan at all. I've just never been a big one. I've seen, I think, one of the movies or so. It's just not my type of thing, but I do think that the actual gameplay and RPG elements are really good. It's a straight up RPG, and it's a really good RPG, be it that, and people really do like the game. So even if you're not into Harry Potter as much, I have heard and I have read that you can play this game and really like it. So shout outs to the devs that got that done overall. But Hogwarts Legacy is good because it's not upgrading the Nintendo Switch version of the game. They're taking the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series version and they're putting it on the Nintendo Switch 2. So it's not an upgrade to where it looks like that, but shinier, but actually replacing it and making it like the other version. So that's definitely going to be a good thing for the platform, that they took the time to actually port the other version and not just say, we'll just take the Switch 1 version and just like upscale it to the Switch 2. So definitely a good thing, and I'm looking forward to it. Once again, technological wise, this is one of the more bigger games that are out there when it comes to PS5. It came later to the Nintendo Switch and to the PS4 and the Xbox One. So it was first on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. So we'll see how that runs overall. But I want to see how you guys run overall. To hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed and you're enjoying this type of content, because there's much more on the way. So hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and click that notification bell to get my vids as soon as they drop. Now let's go ahead and jump right back into this top 25. Coming in at number 20, and that is Cyberpunk 2077. They have the Ultimate Edition of the game, and this is once again another technological thing that I want to see. Probably one of the more interesting games overall. I did play Cyberpunk on the PlayStation 5, and I thought it was cool. I thought there was a lot of cool stuff with the game and some of the combat and all that. I was just always hoping that it was third person, or there was a third person mode. That was, like, to me, the one thing that I really wanted. If they would have had that, then I probably would have been all over it, because the world, some of the gameplay, the missions, like the items, like the weapons, all that stuff is super cool with this game. The voice acting, the music, everything's dope in it overall. The world, it has a super cool vibe to it that I really like, but I just couldn't get past the first person stuff overall with the combat and everything. But with this Ultimate Edition, this is on a 64GB cart, which is apparently the max. They're doing the full thing on there, and from the technological standpoint, this game seems to be more advanced than what we saw on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, because the Phantom Liberty extra big DLC that people love, that people are like, this is so awesome, that's included on the cart for Cyberpunk 2077, and the developers seem incredibly confident to be able to get a 30 frames per second quality mode and a 40 frames per second performance mode when it comes to this title. So that is definitely pretty impressive that they're able to pull it off with good image quality and frame rate and everything. So just like Star Wars Outlaws, this could be a game that kind of gives us more of an idea of what's happening for the future of the Nintendo Switch 2. Coming in at number 19 is Street Fighter 6. I bought it on the Xbox Series, and GameStop never delivered my copy. They said it's coming. It was a collector's edition. It was super nice. I got it for a good price and everything, and I never got it a couple years ago. It was so hilarious. I was in the hospital with my son. You know, my son was being born, and I bought it when he was asleep, and I never got the game at all. So now that he's here, we're going to play Street Fighter 6 together at some point. So I can finally play Street Fighter 6, and I think it's going to be pretty cool having a portable version of the game. I think just that fighting games work pretty well if you can play it anywhere that you want. You know, play it during NFL season or something like that, get some quick matches in and stuff. So I'm looking forward to playing Street Fighter 6 on the Nintendo Switch 2 finally, after 2 years of waiting at this point. That's going to be a launch title, so that's good. Next up at number 18 is Fast Fusion, and this is a game that kind of flew right by, faster than the speeds of the cars in the game during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct. And I found this one interesting because this game actually has a lot of dope features. One, it's going to run at 4K 60 frames per second with HDR on the Nintendo Switch 2. That's pretty nice. It's going to support a wide variety of modes. You have 4-player split screen, game sharing nearby, and game sharing over the internet. You have TV mode, of course, tabletop mode, handheld mode, Joy-Con 2s, HD Rumble 2, Joy-Con Grip 2, Nintendo Switch 2 Pro controllers. So they've got all the features and things that make the Fast RMX, that game that was an original launch title, they just completely blown that up when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, running at that 4K 60 frames per second in HDR. And they emphasized on the website that there's smooth motion controls. So yeah, smooth motion controls in addition to immersive HD rumble and customizable button mapping as well. So yeah, and there's online play, so you can check it out. We don't have F-Zero, but this is probably the next best thing till we get a new F-Zero game, unless you want to check out the F-Zero game that's coming to the Nintendo Switch Online GameCube, which we will talk about in just a bit. Now let's get to the next one here, and that is number 17, and that's Hades 2. This is a game that I've played early access on the PC. I played a little bit on my Steam Deck when I had it, and I thought it was great. I loved the original on the Nintendo Switch 1. I played the heck out of that. I bought the game on the PlayStation 5 physical as well, just because I wanted to support the developers, because I did love the original Hades, and I wanted to kind of see it, just how it looked a little bit better in terms of the quality, and it was awesome. I didn't go back and beat it again, but still, I already beat it on the Nintendo Switch. But yeah, Hades 2 is looking really good. Love the new character, the new weapons, items, and everything. I thought it was great on PC, but I'm just not really a PC person. I'm not a Steam Deck person, so I knew that the game was going to come to the Nintendo Switch 2, and here it is. It's also coming to the Nintendo Switch 1 as well, but of course, you got to get that Nintendo Switch 2 version when it comes to the upgrades and like the image quality and like the graphics and resolution. It's just so much better on the Nintendo Switch 2, so we're going to roll with that version of the game. And yeah, it's Hades. It's back. It's better than ever. Definitely excited for it. Now moving on to number 16 is Enter the Gungeon 2. This is a game that I played originally on the Nintendo Switch, and there was some frame things here and there, which kind of dampened my, I would say, mood playing the game. I thought it was fun. I'm not the biggest rogue game guy at all, but the ones that have a really nice hook and smooth gameplay and controls are great, but there was definitely some frame drops on the original game. Now, this one with Enter the Gungeon 2 just looks like it's way more better in terms of like the look. They went to full 3D or 3D-ish looking graphics. Like this one got messed up during the Nintendo Switch 2 Direct, which is very unfortunate. At least the US feed here, Nintendo of America feed, got messed up, because that is awesome advertising to have it in the Nintendo Direct. You've been waiting for this time, and then it messes up during a feed where there's like millions of people watching, right? So that's just not great. It's not great, but hey, this game is coming. It looks awesome. I think it's going to be really good, just like the first game. And I think it's going to run obviously way better and look so much cleaner while doing it with the new HD Rumble 2. So that's exciting when it comes down to this type of game. All right, next up at number 15 is Split Fiction, a game that I specifically and purposefully waited, because I knew that it was coming to Nintendo Switch 2, because Josef Fares was essentially giddy with excitement for the system. He could barely control himself when it comes to different things, so I knew the game was coming. It makes perfect sense. 2 Joy-Cons, Split Fiction, you could pass the Joy-Con to someone else. It is just literally, like, to me, like a Nintendo Switch 2 type of game, just because of how you play and how it splits up between the two people. It's very much like the previous games that Josef Fares has done when it comes to the multiplayer co-op type of experience, and I think that they still have the thing to where if you buy one copy of the game, you can let somebody else play too as well. So it's got so much good stuff going for it. Split Fiction is already one of the best reviewed games of 2025, one of the higher rated ones, and could find itself in the Game of the Year discussion at the end of the year. We've seen that Josef Fares' games have been really good. It Takes Two won Game of the Year back in 2021. So I do feel that Split Fiction is absolutely going to be some people's top game, and even if it's not, it's fine. It's a great game, great review score, very fun gameplay from what I've seen and from what I've heard from my friends. So I'm absolutely looking forward to playing Split Fiction, and that's going to be at launch on the Nintendo Switch 2. All right, coming in at number 14 is a classic Bravely Default HD remaster, only slightly brought down by Square Enix being cheap and not putting this on a cartridge for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's on a game key card, and that's the only downside. But outside of that, the game is looking awesome. There's upgrades, there's updates, the graphics look better. I think they're gonna tune that last part of the game, you know what I'm talking about, where it loops over and over doing the same thing. They're gonna tune that up. I think there's gonna be some new content in there. This is a game that I've been wanting to replay for a while, but I have not been wanting to replay it on a 240p screen with the Nintendo 3DS. Don't get me wrong, I love the 3DS. It was my favorite system of that time period or area that it came out amongst all the other systems, but still, to me, it's just one of those things where I can't go back and play it on there, and I knew that they do something in the future when it comes down to this game. So seeing Bravely Default HD Remastered, despite the game keycard stuff, I still think that it's going to be an incredible game because I love the original. I thought it was so good, and I do think that's going to roll into Bravely Default 3, which in my opinion is going to be the next big Team Asano game, new game at least, that we see for the Nintendo Switch 2. I think Bravely Default 3 is definitely coming. They've been teasing this for a while, and it seemed like it got pushed back because of the Nintendo Switch 2 having it announced at that direct. So very good to see that. I'm very excited to check it out when it does come out. And that's going to be a launch title as well for the Nintendo Switch 2. All right, next up at number 13 is Right Owl Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army. And I think I played the original game on the PS2. I might have rented it overall, played it at a friend's house. I don't necessarily remember, but it doesn't even matter. At the end of the day, the game looks sick. They've completely retooled the combat system. They've added in new demons. They've upgraded the graphics significantly. You know it's going to run awesome on the Nintendo Switch 2 as it being a PS2 game being remastered. And I do think that the style and the substance of the game is just impeccable. People have talked about this game and it needing to come back for quite some time. And now we can finally all experience it at this point with upgraded graphics, controls, gameplay, and more. So Right Owl Remastered, The Mystery of the Soulless Army, gotta check it out. That's coming out same launch month of the Nintendo Switch 2, so it won't take too long before more games start rolling in for the system. That comes in at number 13. All right, peeps, number 12, Hollow Knight Silksong. Out of nowhere, this game comes back. It's risen from the dead. I've seen people online, on Twitter, and other places saying that this game is vaporware. It is vaporware. It is not real. They lied to us. No, they did not lie. They were just waiting for the Nintendo Switch 2. But by the way, it's also coming to Nintendo Switch 1. And it's coming to other systems too. I think Xbox and probably PlayStation and PC. It's coming to pretty much everything at this point. But still, they needed to wait for the Nintendo Switch 2 to truly let us know what is happening with this game. But Hollow Knight Silksong, it is alive. It is well, it looks good, and it's going to sell a ton of copies overall. I think it's going to blow away Hollow Knight 1 sales when it comes down to it. So yeah, this is going to be a super cop on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I cannot wait to play Hollow Knight Silksong. I love the original game, but this one looks smoother, better, bigger, badder, and I think it's going to have more content as well, considering it took them 15 years between the games. No, I'm joking, of course. So yeah, Hollow Knight Silksong at number 12. Getting into number 11, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Now, I've already played the game originally, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Final Fantasy VII Remake, I have the biggest ever love-hate relationship. I love what they've done with some of the combat and the gameplay, and I hate what they've done when it comes to the structure of the game and not having the original Final Fantasy VII and taking it and splitting it into multiple different parts. I can discuss this all day. This is probably a video for another day, but I am excited about this because I do think, once again, just like some of the other big, ports that we're getting, like Hogwarts or like Elden Ring or Borderlands, Star Wars, this is a game that's going to kind of show us, okay, what is the Nintendo Switch 2 system about? What's the frame rate? What's the resolution? How are things going? And I think that this actually serves a little bit more of a bigger purpose overall, which, once again, I said video for another day because I will have that. I think it's actually one of the most important games in terms of how it does and the future of Final Fantasy on Nintendo platforms and what the company, what Square Enix decides to do. They're in, I would say, low-key turmoil after the situation with the sales with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which they still have not announced yet, and Final Fantasy 16, which they haven't announced past the original 3 million or whatever that they said. So they are definitely looking to retool. They've said that they're going to bring AAA Final Fantasy to Xbox, PlayStation, PC. They're going to go day and date. This game can be the start of a beautiful thing with mainline Final Fantasy, new mainline Final Fantasy coming to Nintendo platforms in the future. So to me, this one, it's a must support. I got to support it. It's probably not going to be on a cartridge because Square Enix is Square Enixing. But at the same time, man, I got to support this, and I want to see what's next when it comes to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I want to see what's next for like the third game in the trilogy, and of course, what they do for the future of Final Fantasy. This is going to be big in Japan. I think this game's going to do well, and I think that Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrated is the start of something very important when it comes to how Square Enix analyzes mainline Final Fantasy on Nintendo Switch 2, and of course, Nintendo going forward. So we'll see how that works out. All right, guys, we are in the top 10. Let's go. We've gotten here. For those that are still here, let's go. Number 10, Nintendo Switch Online GameCube. The reason why I'm excited for this is not to play Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I've already played and beat that game multiple times. It's not to play Soul Calibur, although Link is very nice. It's not even to play F-Zero GX, which is one of the best racing games of all time. It's because there is the possibility the chance that we see something like Beautiful Joe 1 and 2. This is something that we've needed. There has been zero real re-releases for Beautiful Joe 1 and 2. Zero real re-releases for Skies of Arcadia. The GameCube is host to some of the best third-party and first-party games in the 6th generation, and this is the opportunity to be able to have it, to be able to have multiplayer, to not have to go through any type of weird emulation or other type of stuff, to play it natively on the system. I am excited for that because the GameCube has some of the most well-crafted games, and Nintendo's going to fine-tune that baby. You can get that GameCube controller, you can fine-tune it, you can play online. I think that this is going to be great. There's Fire Emblem that's coming, Path of Radiance. This is going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing what Nintendo does with Nintendo Switch Online, GameCube, and the games that are coming because I love the GameCube and there's so many bangers that need to come back and have the light shine on them in an official way, at least. All right, next up at number 9 is Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World. This game is awesome. I love Kirby and the Forgotten Land. It is so good, but the 30 frames per second, which I talked about, how their inputs are smooth, but it would have been great if it was at 60. We got it at 60 now, and there's even more content. So for me, going back and finishing the content that I didn't finish when it comes to the end of the game and having this new content is going to be worth the upgrade for me. Now, I already have the game. I purchased the game, I think physical, and I think Nintendo also gave me a copy, so hashtag free game if that's the case. But I played it, loved it, I thought it was great, but yeah, not at 60 and extra content. I think it's definitely going to be a game that I want to go back and play overall because it looks so good in the Nintendo Switch 2 section of the Nintendo Direct, man. It just looks so awesome. So I definitely want to go back and check it out. And the Star-Crossed World, like, they made incredible extra stages after you beat the game. Those were really difficult and fun. So I'm guessing this is going to be very similar to that. And visually, it looks stunning. They really put some time and effort into it. The Kirby machine is rolling. This game sold over 9 million or around 9 million units. So yeah, they definitely got extra people, time, and effort towards this. And I think this is going to roll right into a brand new big Kirby Game 3 title for the Nintendo Switch 2 as well. All right, next up at number 8 is Pokemon Legends ZA, and we've got a Nintendo Switch 2 version of this game. There is going to be a Nintendo Switch 2 edition for, thankfully, better frame rates and better resolution. Now, the graphics are still going to look like how the graphics are, but at least it's going to run a lot better and be smoother. That overhead, I think, is going to help the Pokemon company overall. We did get updates, or we did get an update that there's going to be free updates for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but I did not include any of the free update games. All these games are games that are coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 in terms of things like with an actual release, not just an update or something like that. So yeah, Pokemon Legends ZA, I think the game looks fun. You can sneak attack people up on balconies or up on rooftops. I mean, you have the ZA tournament type of thing that they're doing. And I think that overall, like with the combat, that is what intrigues me the most. The combat and how they've changed things up is super cool in the game. It's like a real action RPG with Xenoblade style cooldowns and everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works out. And thankfully, there is a Nintendo Switch 2 version because we would have never heard the end of it if this game was just on the Switch 1 and there was some issues like with the frame rate or whatever the case is. At least we have that buffer with the Nintendo Switch 2 and it's coming out at the end of the year. So of course there's going to be more people that probably pick up a Nintendo Switch 2 to get Pokemon Legends ZA and get the better experience. So that's definitely a good thing. All right, coming in at number 7 is Kirby Air Riders, another, I would say, somewhat underrated announcement from the major media out there. But for me, as someone who played the original Kirby Air Riders, I thought it was cool, but I was never hardcore into it. But Masahiro Sakurai, he did the one before, but he's doing this one, and they made sure to let us know, yo, this is Masahiro Sakurai. Oh man, that makes me super excited because he can get away just for a little bit from the clutches of Smash Brothers. But don't get me wrong, guys, don't get it twisted. Smash Brothers is coming. I would not be surprised to see Smash Brothers announced by the end of the year or next year. They always like to have Smash Brothers games early. Sakurai probably knocked this one out in between videos that he did on YouTube, and he is hard at work on that next Super Smash Brothers game. But this game with Masahiro Sakurai, Kirby Air Riders, you know it's going to be packed full of content. It's going to be sleek, it's going to be fun, it's going to be to the point, and it's going to be an efficient game, just like Kid Icarus Uprising was. So I cannot wait to see what Sakurai has in store for us. Plus, he did online play nearly perfect back on the Nintendo 3DS. Imagine what he's going to be able to do with the Nintendo Switch 2 overall and the online gameplay there. So very excited when it comes to Kirby Air Riders. That's coming this year. Underrated sleeper type of hit, in my opinion. All right, next up is a game that sizzled to me, and that is Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. That's September 5th, and this game, they are actually being okay with it. Marvelous is not being crazy. We can cover it. I haven't had any copyrights. Anytime that I've used the footage, that was a huge thing with the original Daemon X Machina on the Nintendo Switch 1. They were getting crazy with the coverage of the game. I mean, it still sold well enough, and obviously they were able to put that money into this incredible looking mech game. It looks so good. Some people thought maybe it was a Monolith soft title overall. But yeah, the graphics look great. We saw it running on the Nintendo Switch 2. I think that's going to be the version for me, having the portable play. Looks like it runs a lot better than the Nintendo Switch 1 game. Obviously, it looks way better. The mechs are super detailed. The gameplay looks awesome. There's going to be a ton of customization. The story seems a bit more involved. I'm looking forward to this one. This is like super high-end AA/low AAA at its peak. We need more games like this that really kind of just focus and emphasize on that. Don't try to blow out the budget 1,000,000%, but just do the best that you can with what you've got, and then also add in that sauce. And I think that's what this game just drips and oozes, the sauce of style and substance. So Daemon X Machina 1 definitely had that, but they've upped it to the next level here with Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. So looking forward to this game. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. All right, peeps, we are in the top 5. Let's go. You guys excited for this one? I'm excited to talk about it. So coming in at number 5 is Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Now, I loved the original Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but goodness gracious, that frame rate was just something that I just had to just power through because I was enjoying the game and the story and everything so much, but the frame rate was just bad in so many places. But man, this game just croaked, especially when you had the Divine Beast, those levels and stuff like that. It just couldn't handle it. Like the rendering, everything, it just couldn't handle it. They ran out of time. I'm not really sure, but the game was still fun. But I did get the DLC, and the frame rate is also really bad in the DLC, and I just couldn't put myself through all that. I'm like, I gotta wait for an update on the Nintendo Switch 2 or something else. But with Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, they have a chance to fix some of the fatal flaws of the original Hyrule Warriors game. Hopefully this one is super true to blue Zelda hardcore fan canon, because we all got kind of like okey doked apparently. They're like, oh yeah, it's canon, but then oh, maybe what if, you know, whatever. It seemed like a rug pull at the very end there. So this one, hopefully completely canon. It looks like they put way more money and time into this. Obviously, they're taking advantage of the Nintendo Switch 2. There's tons of enemies rendered on the screen, and I think that they're probably going to have a performance mode and a quality mode. So they showed the quality mode, but I think there's going to be a performance 60 frames per second mode as well. So man, this is just great. I love the Breath of the Wild story and what they've built within that universe and that world, and those versions of the characters with Link and Princess Zelda. This is just going to be a fantastic experience in my opinion. So Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment makes it number 5 on the list. Coming in at number 4, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. And listen, this is a Switch 1 game, but man, it is technologically impressive what they're doing with it. Yes, it's not the most detailed overall. I get that. But Nintendo, would you ever have thought? I never thought this. I don't care what anybody says. I never thought that Nintendo would be like, all right, guys, you can play this game at 4K, 60 frames per second. Oh, and by the way, you can play this game at 120 frames per second. If you thought Nintendo was going to do that, you are lying. You are lying overall, man, because nobody thought that. But yeah, 120 frames for a sleek shooter where I get motion sickness with first person shooters. I think that 120 frames per second mode is going to help me out immensely, not getting dizzy or a little bit weird when I play these first person games. I mean, it just looks so good. The mouse controls seem to work seamlessly. You can even transition back and forth between mouse controls and playing the game normally overall. So I think that Metroid Prime 4, from the graphics, the new powers, from the gameplay that they've shown during the Nintendo Treehouse, all of it just looks awesome. This is going to be a classic, incredible Prime experience. I've beaten all the Prime games, Prime 1, Prime 2, Prime 3, even the bad Prime games. Metroid Prime Pinball, that game's not bad, but I've beaten that too. Metroid Prime Federation Force, played that. So I've played everything with Prime, and I think that this is going to be the game that truly shows how beautiful Samus can look overall when it comes to being on a system, especially one powered like the Nintendo Switch 2. So Metroid Prime 4 Beyond makes it number 4 on the list. Coming in at number 3, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, the updates on the Nintendo Switch 2. Listen, I love Breath of the Wild. I love Tears of the Kingdom. These are two of my favorite games of all time. If I had a top 25 to make, they would both be in there at this point. That's how much I love Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. The open world, the gameplay, the different types of physics and mechanics. It's unlike anything else out there. But if there's one big flaw, which I stated back then when I first played Breath of the Wild, and of course Tears of the Kingdom when you play that game, is the frame rate at times. The frame rate and kind of how the world looks, some of the draw distance, some of the stuff in there, not the best. They have done some excellent work in terms of making this game run way better. So even like in the forest, for example, that was a problem on the Nintendo Switch 1. It is no longer a problem on the Nintendo Switch 2. 60 frames per second, 1440p, a bunch of nice quality of life features like a Korok seed tracker with voice navigation. You have some achievements within the app, and you've got a QR code sharer for Tears of the Kingdom, different types of creation. So if you suck at creating stuff, well, you can download other people's that are pretty good. So this to me is awesome, and people are going to be sharing all sorts of crazy things. Have you guys been on Twitter and seen all the crazy contraptions that people build, and you're like, well, I have no chance of building that? Well, those people, I guarantee you it's going to breathe fresh life into this game. Those people are going to be sharing their creations like crazy, and it's going to bring about so many people talking about Tears of the Kingdom again. I think it's going to get a huge sales bump, because I do think that there were people that held out for the Nintendo Switch 2 version of this game. So I think that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, both of them are going to get a sales bump, but I think Tears of the Kingdom is going to be interesting because of that QR code sharer and people just sharing and doing all sorts of stuff when it comes to the various things that you can create in that game, which we've seen, but we really can't do anything because there's no way for us to share it with someone else. I'm not building any of that crazy stuff that I've seen online. So yeah, very happy about that. But even like Breath of the Wild, being able to play that at 60 frames per second and so much smoother, faster loading and everything, this is awesome, and that's going to be at launch. So very good overall, very excited about that. And the best thing for me is essentially I already have everything that I need for both of these games. There was a lot of talk about, oh, the game's $90 on the Nintendo Switch 2 if you count the DLC plus the upgrade pack. I already have the game. The game sold 32 million units plus. I already have the game. And I already have the expansion pass overall. Plus, I have Nintendo Switch Online plus expansion pack. So you get both of these upgrades at no additional cost. So all I got to do is update it and play. Would have been nice though. Nintendo should have included it in the Nintendo Switch 2 version for the expansion pass. Like, they should have included it. But I already got everything set. I just got to update and play. So very excited about that. Coming in at number 2, the Kong is back. Donkey Kong Bonanza. This game looks lit. Donkey Kong showing his muscle and power and brute strength. That is what Donkey Kong is about. Don't get me wrong, I love the 2D DKs. DK is awesome there. You punch people, you roll over people, you jump on people's heads, you do all sorts of stuff. But he's a bit of a wimp in the game. You can only get hit a few times before he goes running off. The original DKC games, he gets hit once, he's out of there. You know what I'm saying? He's out. He's a big, strong gorilla, and they finally have been able to translate what Donkey Kong could be in a huge platformer with his expressive nature and kind of how weird he is and kind of how goofy, but with that brute strength that truly shows and makes a difference between other platforming games or other titles out there. This is how Donkey Kong is. In the movie, he's like that. He's so strong and everything. This game shows that, being able to burrow underground, just punching, being able to rip apart different chunks of levels and use it to smash other parts. There's particles flying everywhere. It looks good. It's running perfect. This is finally the Nintendo system that's able to create some of the experiences that we've wanted with some of these games for so long, since the Wii U era, and it's finally happening. Donkey Kong Bonanza showed me that this is the experience, the 3D experience that I've been waiting for Donkey Kong. I'm not a Donkey Kong 64 fan, so I didn't want to see that game get like remade or anything like that. This is the type of Donkey Kong, if it's 3D, that I want to play. Platforming in addition to just brute strength overall. So very excited about that. Can't wait to see more of the boss battles and things like that. That's going to be pretty cool. And this game's coming out 1 month after the Nintendo Switch launches. It comes out in July, so super excited about that. All right, and coming in at number 1, I think all of you guys have already guessed, Mario Kart World. Listen, we've been playing Mario Kart for 11 years. I get it. Price as well, right? The $80 price tag. I'm going to get the bundle, so I'm going to have that in there. I'll probably buy the physical cartridge later down the line. But outside of that, just going over the game, this is the Mario Kart game we've all been waiting for. You've got a large selection of different skins and characters to use. You've got huge tracks. You've got double the race count. You've got all sorts of cool different racing strategies, between doing rail grinds to off the wall kickflips and all sorts of stuff. You've got really nice graphics. You've got weather effects, dynamic. You've got a huge open world that transitions seamlessly. You can just kind of race. You've now got actual like jet skis where it transforms when you're in the water. It's like a new wave race as well. You don't go underneath the water. You actually bounce and the water physics go along it. This is the Mario Kart game that we've all been waiting for. I've been waiting for. I've been playing this Mario Kart 8 game for forever, and this game just blows it out of the water when it comes to the physics, the graphics, the character selection overall, the skins, different stuff. Like, it's yet to be seen how it actually kind of comes together with the racing and how it feels. But from what people have played, the hands-on, in addition to Nintendo's own Treehouse gameplay, this Mario Kart game is going to be absolutely incredible. There's so many places to go, so many different characters to use. There's even a freaking cow. You can use a Goomba. There's all sorts of stuff. This is a huge Mario Kart racing game that is just going to be so much fun to play with family and friends for years down the line. I couldn't be more excited about this game. It's hype. I get it, price and all that, man. But once again, I'm getting the bundle and I'm just super hyped to finally be able to get a brand new, big console Mario Kart game that completely takes the conventions of Mario Kart and says, we're out with that. Now you have this, doubling the player count and everything. Super excited. And the biggest thing, for me at least, because of all you busted, broken people out there using different kart combinations that get you the best stuff, no more kart parts and all that stuff. You pick your racing kart and they can balance it even better. It's harder to balance it when you can mix and match every single stupid thing in the game, but now you actually have it to where you just pick your cart. So I like that, because a lot of you guys be cheating out there, and you know who you are. The people that play here on this channel, when I do my live streams, you know exactly who I'm talking about. So I'm pretty sure you guys can all kind of figure that out, the ones who come to my live streams and play Mario Kart with me. So yeah, you guys' days are numbered getting #1 all the time at this point. What do you guys think about my top 25 upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 games? Are there any titles that you're super excited about that I didn't have on my list? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 and RPG content, like this video going over what's going on with the graphics and Digital Foundry. I thought that was a pretty interesting video, so check that out and more. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.